So hey there everybody, welcome to the Moto vlog. This is going to be for June of 2023, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about my off-brand Kayo K6-R 250 modifications that I've done, things I've been working on, just touching in with long-term durability with you guys. And then I'm going to go into talking a little bit about motocross, supercross, the situation that's going on right now with a lot of the injuries and stuff like that. So let's get this thing started with talking about my Kayo. I haven't spoke to you guys in a long time in regards to it because I really haven't been able to ride a whole lot. The weather's been very crappy, so today I'm very fortunate to be able to come out and get some riding in. And today I'm testing the rear shock. I sent it to be revalved. I already have done 2 different size rear spring rates, and so this is the 6.0 Race Tech rear shock spring is on there from I believe a 2013 KTM 450 is what I used as a reference for this bike. And like I said, a 6.0 rear spring because of my weight. I'm over 200 pounds. So I sent my rear shock to Joe Henner. If you're not familiar from my previous videos, he does work on these off-brand bikes, and he is a certified race tech technician. I had previously sent it to a guy locally, and as Joe got into it this time, I'm not gonna say he didn't touch, the other guy didn't touch my bike, but it's very evident that he didn't do much to it, if he did anything at all. So Joe got in there and found metal shavings. That is more of a, from factory. It's not metal shavings where something came apart. It's just the casting and the working of the shock itself initially from brand new. But he also found that there's a wear bushing in there and on the piston inside the shock, and the wear bushing had worn a hole through it. So essentially what was happening is I had no dampening. The oil was moving past that because there was a break in the wear bushing. So yeah, I basically was running on my spring only. So what I'm looking for today is to see that I actually have some dampening. Dampening, the best way I can kind of explain it to you is oil resistance against a piston makes the shock shaft move slower. It's the best way I can kind of explain it, and you can control that. You're controlling that with your clickers and your spring. What I was trying to correct by sending it to Joe Henner was the fact that I basically had a dead feeling in the back. It didn't seem to have any. I was adjusting clickers like crazy, in and out, trying to get a feeling of resistance, if you will. So this is what I'll be testing today. I'll also be doing a ride video where I talk about it, so we'll be messing around with that today. If you've seen my other videos, or you can look and find it, I changed out my front forks to Showa from a Honda for no other reason other than I had them. I was familiar with working on them, and they were 6 pounds lighter than what came stock with my Kayo. So the Kayos were fine. I had run them for the first couple of months that I owned the bike, but yeah, I had these Honda Showa forks laying around, and I've rebuilt them a couple times and changed out the spring rates on them too. But yeah, I put them on there for no other reason than I had them and they were lighter. Other things that I've done on the bike was I've changed the throttle housing to a nibby throttle, a quarter turn throttle. I felt like that was an improvement, but I had to modify it just a little bit. The ball end of the throttle cable was wider than the scenario that was in the throttle housing, the tube itself where it connects on the nibby one. So I had to grind that down a little bit. I got from Joe Hinner an advanced timing key, which what it does is it rotates the timing, it rotates the flywheel a little bit forward. That's how your timing is off of the end of the crank on the flywheel. This particular one advances it about 4 degrees, but it's constant. So it's a constant 4 degrees, and it's a mechanical advance. It's not like your ECUs where it's dependent on the revs. This is advancing it mechanically throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole time that you're anytime you're using the motorcycle and using the throttle. So for this particular bike, what that does is it gave it more snap. It cleaned up everything and gave it more throttle response, more snap. At least for my bike, I enjoyed it. I thought it was measurable. I could feel it. I'm not sure a lot of guys, I've heard different things about that, but I would recommend it to anybody. I mean, you gotta think it can't hurt. You know, look at the situation as it's not very expensive to do. I think he was selling them reasonably priced. I don't want to quote his prices anymore because I got mine almost a year and a half ago. But let's say for under 50 bucks, if you have the flywheel puller also, you know, you're a very cheap mod that you get a little bit of extra kick out of. And I don't know if you guys are aware, I'm the one running the Kayo K6-R and K6-EFI owners group on Facebook. That's my baby. I'm in there all the time commenting on it. I'm always looking at different things that people have done, modifications. So yeah, that's, I implore you, if you have a Kayo K6-R or K6-EFI or even the KT250, people comment in there every now and then, to join that group. Ask to join that group, particularly if you're in the United States and you're watching these. I sometimes can't approve people from other countries just because I don't know what they have. You know, they may say they have that bike, but I don't know that they have it. So I don't always let them in to the group. But the group is it's pretty big. I think it's near 1,000 people, maybe even more. And there's a lot of good information in there. A lot of people, if you have a question, they can get it answered for you. I put in not a file, I forget where I put it now, but there's a description of compatibility parts that you can comment to and add to. It's a Google file, and I listed a whole bunch of things that are cross-reference, but just to name a couple things because I've been seeing them lately. People have asked about sprockets. So as far as I'm aware, there may be more than one, but the countershaft sprocket is a DRZ 400 countershaft sprocket, is the cross-reference. From what I've seen, you cannot put a 14 on, but you can put a 12 or a 13. The rear is a Honda 250. I got mine from Rocky Mountain ATV, and I got it for the cross-reference of a believe a 2015 I used for the reference, CRF 250X, the off-road version. So that worked for me. Let's see, what are some of the other things I've been seeing people ask about? Oh, plastic. A lot of people are having no problem putting, for the radiator shrouds, using 2016 KTM 250 and 350 SXFs. They've been able to use that, and it's been able to work. I think it's a little bit, it bulges just a hair on the gas tank on the lower part of the shroud. It kind of bulges out because it doesn't align with the cutout for the gas tank, but I think that's a small sacrifice to be able to get an inexpensive plastics, shrouds, because the stock stuff, for a while there, everyone thought you could get was the stock, and they're like $85 a side. They're ridiculous on their prices for that. So in regards to the EFIs, I do not have an EFI. A lot of people have asked me about that. I don't own the EFI, and there is a lot of differences between the carbureted version, which I have, the K6-R, versus the K6 EFI. Just to name a few, the rims are different. The hubs and the rims are different. The steering stem and the triple clamps are different. I believe the plastic in the rear is different. I'm not sure about that. Maybe both will work, but it has a different design. Has a different kind of cutout for where the air filter is. Obviously EFI versus carburetor. The shock and the forks are different. On the K6-R 250, the one that I have, the carbureted model, my rear shock is very similar to a 2010 Honda CRF 250 and 450R, a Shawa, and the front forks on mine are the same scenario. They were 47 millimeter cartridge forks, very similar to an old style, like say 2005 to 2007 Honda CRF 250 450Rs. They are not exact. It's not an exact copy, but they have a lot of different design cues from that. The EFI is a totally different open chamber. I think it's even one side dampening, one side spring, totally different forks. And the rear shock, I'm not even sure what it is. Like what the cross reference for that is. But in regards to that, if you have suspension woes, like you're worried about your suspension, you want it to be better, send it to Joe Henner. Contact Joe Henner at GPX. He now works at GPX. He has his own suspension part of that, but he works for GPX out in Utah, or Motor Toys USA. Same thing, same company, but yeah, he's the only guy I know that some of the guys, I tried to get suspension done by some people and they turned it away just because it was an off-brand bike. They didn't want to deal with it because they were like, well, I don't know if I can get all the shims and the parts. And Joe has done this so much, he knows what cross references, he has all the parts, he knows how to set them up and fix them correctly. And let me tell you, just from stuff that he's done for me in the past, it's a vast improvement. The stock stuff comes with some really lightweight, thin oil. It's not very good. Some of the components, sometimes the bushings are kind of crappy. sometimes you get mixed quality of front fork seals if you're sending him your forks. One batch they run these really good quality fork seals, the next batch, they don't. So for you guys with Kayos, I definitely would recommend you send your stuff to Joe Henner. And even though you have to pay shipping, return, there and back, it ended up costing me with his work less than what my local guy quoted me to do it. So there's that too. Even though you're sending it away, his price, he doesn't rape you. He charges you a fair rate to do the work. A lot of times he can get you the springs. Sometimes the springs are a little hard to come by, but most times if you need it, if you need a heavier spring or a lighter spring, even either way, he can get you the springs too. So anyways, back to my bike. I've had it over a year and a half. I haven't had any problems other than I broke one bolt. I think it just happened to be torqued. It was over torqued, and then when I went to take it off with an impact wrench instead of using like a ratchet, it snapped the head off, and that was at the top shock mount. I replaced it with a Honda one, and I've had no problems since. I did have another one fall. It just kind of came out. It vibrated out, even though I Loctite everything. I think this is it's kind of a common thing on dirt bikes. It happens. That was a rear subframe, the lower mount. Just one of the bolts kind of popped out one day, but I have a track pack, they call it. I bring with me that has extra nuts and bolts, and I just put it in there. It was fine. It's been great ever since. Haven't had any problems. I think that's it for failures. I have yet, failure-wise, I haven't had failures that I can recall. If you guys remember something and I forgot it, just put it in the comments. But yeah, this bike has been very, very, very durable. It's beefy. It is a heavy bike, and the engine is very. I've torn into it. I've had the head off and everything. It's very well built in there. I've had no problems, but I tore it apart. I was gonna switch it out to a 300 big bore kit. I have the kit sitting at my house, but I also sent my cylinder out, my head and cylinder, to Joe Henner to be ported. He did porting for me, and the type of porting that he did increased the revs and helped me increase the hit, the actual off throttle, that when you're coming out of a corner, the hit. I also changed out the gearing. I advise anybody who gets this bike to change out the gearing, because it is horrible. I don't know what the hell these people were riding on. I think it comes stock with a 13, well, mine came 1351. I think the EFI is 1349 with an already existing wide ratio transmission. And what I mean by that, wide ratio means that when you put it in a gear, how long it can stay in that gear, the internal gearing is such that it can run a very long time in any one gear. So that's the internal gearing, and then when you combine that with the external gearing, the way they had it low, like mine was 1351, it was as if it was designed to be ridden on the road or high-speed trail, like out west, the high-speed desert trails where you're going 80, 90 miles an hour. So one of the first things I did was lower the gearing. The first thing I did, I lowered the rear, which is actually, adding teeth to the rear sprocket. So I went to, first thing I did was 1352, then I went to 1353, and I wanted it tighter between the gears for my style riding, and that wouldn't be for everybody. My style riding, I like to grunt. I like to have a very strong hit coming out of a corner, because my old man ass doesn't keep enough momentum. I don't ride all that well to keep the high momentum that I used to when I was younger. But so I needed a harder hit. So eventually I went to a 12 front and a 53 rear, and that's been the ticket for me. And I've advised a lot of other people that do my style riding to go with that. And that really tightens everything up. It tightens the internal gearings too, because you've changed the gearing so much. There's less spacing between the gears. So now I'm shifting more often. But once I get up to like third and fourth, it's perfect amount. It seems to be right there, the sweet spot for me, riding in third and fourth gear. All right, so that's enough for my Kayo for this particular vlog, this moto talk. Next thing I'm going to get into real quick, real quick hit on this. The pro level ranks. I've been seeing a lot of people commenting on the injury level, and I want to just say, yes, there's always been injuries, but I'm starting to come around to what some other people are, the general populace. I want the riders to be there, and I'm starting to feel like there's, for whatever reason, I have a couple thoughts on it, but we're losing riders left and right. And even though this is the first year they've done the super motocross, where they're combining the outdoors, the indoors, and a championship 3-round thing at the end, I think that was good. I think change is good, but we're asking too much of our riders. They never are getting a break anymore, and unless they're doing World Supercross. The World Supercross thing, I think they've got that down the right way, and even that's going to change, because even though it's 6 rounds this time, I think it's 6 rounds this year, they're going to want to add rounds, but to the point, they have spacing between them. It's a lot of times it's more than just a week, and I think we need to adopt that here in the US. I feel like what they got now is like 31 or 32 races is going to make up a season, and you start in January and you end in October, and then you're testing for the next year. You never have any time off, and they're always, they're training during the week, they're traveling during the week, their bodies are just, it's too much. And yes, I get that this is the best of the best and all of that, but I think it's too much, and that's why we're seeing all these injuries. I mean, if you look at the 450 class outdoors right now, today as I speak to you, yesterday or 2 days ago or yesterday, we lost Chase Sexton for the second round. And what do you got left? You got Jet Lawrence. And Dylan Ferrandis. Yeah, I take that back. Okay, Dylan Ferrandis, Jet Lawrence, Cooper, and Plessinger from the factories. I think that's about it. And you got guys that are going to come back later in the series, but they're not going to be racing for the title. So when you go to a race and you pay for these tickets, you want to see all the guys. That's the whole point. You want to see the Roxon, you want to see you want to see Tomac, you want to see Sexton, you want to see Anderson and Barsha, Dean Wilson, I don't know. I can't even name all the guys that are out. It's ridiculous. So here's my thought on how they can fix this. In Supercross, make the tracks easier. Make the landing of the jumps run out more. And you say, well, wow, why do you want easier tracks? Because everybody can do them, and the fast guys are gonna race the fast guys. Fast is fast, no matter what you're riding. So just make it easier for everybody, and you're not landing these really pointy jumps where someone's gonna have to get perfect for every lap every time they're out there. prime example is what happened to Justin Barcia. He was doing a Dragon's Back and came up millimeters, I mean just millimeters short, but the steepness of the downside of the ramp that he was trying to hit caused him to clip the front on the peak of it, and he got flipped over, and you know, he's done. So why not fill that gap like you would fill a tabletop? You can still, you know, you can still have jump, flat, jump, landing. You know what I mean? Like, you can still have it staggered like a Dragon Back is, but fill it in between. There's no reason why you can't. It's just a little bit more dirt. I think you sacrifice that somewhere else to have a lengthy series. Another thing is make the race where it's 20 laps or 20 minutes. Whichever comes first. Some of these tracks are like in the 50s, in the seconds, and they end up doing 26 laps, 20, I think even one of them was 28 laps. Forget that, just make the total time 20 minutes, and if you want to add plus 1 lap or whatever, but make the time the same no matter what the track size is, so they're not doing more laps. That helps with the track degradation. It's not going to degrade as much, and the guys are consistently doing the same amount of time. They're not doing more laps just because the track builders build a smaller track. Some of these places you have to build a smaller track. Just don't have them go as much, so they're not as rutted. The deep, the ruts are not as deep. You're not getting cross-rutted and messed up. And I think you also got to consider the number of rounds. I think yes, we want to make money. The promoters want to make money. They want to have more rounds, but it's going to be at their own detriment, because they're not going to have riders, and people are going to, I feel like people aren't going to show up for it when you can't see the best guys. The most spectators you're going to draw is when you have the most competition and the racing is exciting and it's not some guy just running away with it. So, I mean, that's just some of my thoughts. I have more. I may do a whole video about that, because I got some ideas that they're not even thinking about. But yeah, that's it. I enjoyed the Supercross. I felt it was good. I had called Chase Sexton out as being the winner, and I'm glad it kind of worked out for him. The people that are hating on him for saying he backed into a title, I don't know what planet you live on, but you can't win a title if you don't finish. And while it was unfortunate that Eli Tomac, had his injury, this has happened to a lot of people. Dungey has won because Villopoto was out. Stewart won because Carmichael was out. This guy won because that guy's out. This happens. That's a whole part of it. You have to finish the whole season. And Chase really sucked it up a lot during the season to make up those points at the end to be there. He was close enough. I think he was within 15 with 2 to go, something like that. I mean, that's what you gotta do. I don't take anything from Chase. I think Chase is a very good rider, and he did the best he could with what he had. He had his issues, and he still finished out. He's very deserving of the title. I have no problem with it. People are hating on him. I don't understand it. But, you can't change people's minds sometimes. They just have their own opinions. But, anyways, that's it. I'm just driving out to go riding today, and I just want to talk with you guys. I haven't talked out to you guys in a while. Everybody be cool, be safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.